Hi, I'm Joe Hage. I have the privilege of leading your medical devices group, which is now live at medicaldevicesgroup.net. We've moved off LinkedIn and we're building our community with the expectation that with experts like Rachel and a few other people that I know, we are going to answer every medical device question you could possibly have. It's a big, ambitious goal, and I call it my 5-year plan, which gives me about 1,500 days to figure out how we're going to do that. So we're going to build one brick at a time, and today, Rachel Benway from ReTech is going to do a live demo for us. I've never done a webinar like this before. I encourage you to ask your questions. Rachel, take it away with what I believe is a short presentation, and then we'll dig into the goodness and how this all works.
Yes, so thanks, Joe, and welcome again to all who have joined today's webinar. If you've ever been frustrated with searching the FDA databases for medical device safety and quality data, today we'll show you a better way. I'm Rachel Benway, Product Manager in the Life Sciences Department at ReTech, and specifically for our product Navigator for medical devices. ReTech, in case you aren't familiar with us, is a leader in data analytics and information solutions and services for government agencies, the intellectual property market, and of course, the life sciences industry. Our offerings smooth the collection, transformation, submission, and analysis of regulatory data for manufacturers and distributors of medical devices and drug products, and for those who support them in consulting and IT roles. We are part of LexisNexis, which is itself a part of the RELX Group, which you might know better by its former name, Reed Elsevier. In today's webinar, we'll take a look at why the current process can be so frustrating. Then I'll demo our solution, ReTech Navigator for medical devices, and talk about how it will enable you to be more proactive in your risk management and post-market surveillance. Finally, we'll discuss the varying use cases for medical device data and answer any questions. But as Joe said, if you have questions along the way or want to see something again, just let me know. So to start, I'd like to share the results of a survey we conducted as part of the process of creating Navigator. Specifically, we did some exploration into how research and analytics tasks are completed today. What we heard was that people go to the individual FDA websites, search them, and try to get to the detailed reports that mention a particular issue or something else that they are researching. Along with that, medical device manufacturers told us that there are multiple pain point methods for doing this kind of research. What we heard is that it's hard to search and retrieve meaningful results, it takes a long time, and the data sources aren't clean. In summary, we are using the currently available data sets for risk analysis and regulatory activities is a time-consuming process, which is magnified by the fact that these databases are not very user-friendly and can be very difficult to search successfully. Furthermore, the data is not normalized or standardized, which prevents trending and benchmarking. To overcome these barriers, we've built Navigator, which connects over a dozen sources, including FDA approvals and clearances, and event data like adverse events, recalls, and warning letters. We use GMZN, UDIs, device listings, and product code information to categorize the products and events. Additionally, we assemble all references to a particular product into a single entry. The word cloud on the right shows how many variations on a single product name and manufacturer are possible. This is a real example that's modeled after actual variations of a real product in mod. Additionally, Navigator uses natural language processing to find device problems and patient problems hidden within the adverse event descriptions and manufacturer narratives. On the left, we can see the event description, which states that the patient is having swelling in her right knee and that the surgeon is concerned about osteolysis. Navigator has identified these patient problems, which can then be charted to show the top patient problems for this particular device. This provides a tremendous time saving over reading through possibly hundreds or thousands of reports to find particular issues and trends. Another great feature of Navigator is the ability to search through over 60,000 510Ks by intended use, indications for use, or device description. This is particularly useful for predicate searching, and what we've actually done here is OCR'd in some cases the actual PDF documents and taken out those indications for use, intended use, device descriptions, and also the prescription information, and made all those fields searchable. So if you are frustrated with searching the FDA sites, we feel like Navigator can be a better way. I'm now going to go into the demo portion. We'll cover some use cases like regulatory intelligence, including predicate searching, guidance documents, and a new term we're calling successors, but I'll explain that when I get to it. Also show you some risk management tasks, by doing adverse event searching, including failure modes, and looking at the frequency and severity of them. This is Navigator. I've logged in and I'm going to show the 510K search section first. But before I get into that, I just wanted to do a little refresher on what this search might be like if you were using the actual FDA site. So this is the 510K search tool. Many of you are probably familiar with it. You can see there's only a limited number, and none of the fields are indications for use, intended use, or device description, which when you're looking for a predicate is really what you want to get to. So you need to find a 510K that already exists that shares the same intended use or indications for use of the product that you're looking to bring to market. So when we go to Navigator, these are the search fields that we have available. If you already know what the K number is that you're looking for, you can type that directly in there. But we also have intended use, device description, product code, and brand name or manufacturer if, once again, you know what 510K you're already looking for. But I'm going to type in bruxism into my intended use or indications for use. Bruxism is the technical term for teeth grinding. So let's pretend that I'm a manufacturer and I'm making a mouth guard and I want to bring that to market. I'm going to need to find another device that already exists that has the same intended use of bruxism. So if I search for that, it will bring back all of those 510Ks that have bruxism in the intended use or indications for use. That is 64 items, which is still quite a few, but I do have these filter options on the side here. So as you would have seen, the FDA is transitioning to putting more of an emphasis on newer predicates, so ones from the past 10 years or even 5 years, and I can just select that. So that'll narrow the field down to only the ones that were approved or cleared in the last 5 years. That gets me down to 10 items, but I can go even further. The mouth guard that I want to bring to the market is going to be over the counter. So I can choose OTC or over the counter. If instead you have a prescription device, you can choose prescription. And this gets me down to only 5 items, which is a much smaller field to look through. It'll be a lot less time consuming, and I know that those items are already going to be ones that are very close to the perfect predicate for me. And you can click on any of these to see more details. I'm going to click on this Sleep Right product. And it'll bring up all of the details about this 510K, including the device description and the indications for use that were pulled out of that PDF document. If I want to see the full PDF, I can click that down here under supporting documentation. There's the full summary, and that'll pop up in a PDF viewer for you that you can just click off whenever you're done with it. We also have a timeline, so we can see the received date and also the decision date, and we've done a little calculation. So we can see how many days have elapsed between those decisions. This one looks like a pretty standard 116 days, so not super fast, but not super long either. For each of these 510Ks, there's additional information you can see. So we do have the predicates and successors. So the predicate information is going to be the predicates that this 510K K172223 listed on their application. So they had 2 predicate devices. And I can click on any of these to go to the details for that 510K. We also have successors. So these are going to be clearances that list the 510K I'm currently viewing, 172223, as a predicate. So these are the devices that are going to come after it. But if you see successors here, they could be potential competitors of this device, or if you're looking for a predicate, it could be newer 510Ks that would also make really good predicates. Once you've found the 510Ks that you think are going to be good predicates, you can save them to your watch list. So that's kind of like a favorites list. You can create as many different watch lists as you like, and you can add as many different products to each watch list. So I've already added this product. Yep.
So I have a question from Chuck. He wants to know, in addition to the product, will it provide the CFR paragraph number as well?
Sorry, can you repeat the beginning?
In addition to the product code, will it provide the CFR paragraph number as well?
So we don't have that information here. I do have the Code of Federal Regulations information other places available in the application or in the database. So if that's something that's really useful for you, we can definitely consider adding that in either into this 510K overview, or if you want to just be able to understand more about how this product is classified and understand the whole Code of Federal regulations around it, we can provide links to the CFR for that.
So if you want, Chuck, you can go ahead and write in the notes why CFR is important for you. You know, how much time do you spend on it? Is it something that she should take back to product development? And Rachel, you also said that you have access to it. It's like behind the scenes and it's not like visible, and you're just a matter of.
Well, I can show you. I'm going to get to it in a minute. You'll see where we have some CFRs listed.
Okay. John Spear notes that product code ties directly to the CFR, which you know, I didn't know.
Yeah, so I can show you where we have some of that information. We've heard that a little bit before with some other prospects and customers we've talked about with 510K searching. So it's something that we're definitely thinking about adding for the 2019 roadmap is an easier way to get to the CFR information. This
is a time, folks, for you to say, yes, that would be good for me. And if we get a lot of that, then she has good feedback. We have a yes, but please go on. Sounds good. We have a few yeses coming in. Please continue.
Okay, great. So some other things that can be important for predicate consideration is if there's been a lot of recalls, and depending on what those recall reasons are, same with adverse events, we have a little overview of that here. Also guidance documents, which I'll get into a little bit more in a minute. So for the watch list, like I said, you can add this 510K to as many watch lists as you like and put as many different 510Ks on each of those watch lists. So for instance, I'll go to my 510K watch list right now. This is the mouthguard over-the-counter watch list where I've saved that 510K that I was just on. You can see a little overview here of all of those 510Ks, which product codes they have, if they have guidance documents, or any of those quality or safety indicators for them. Once I have a list of 510Ks that I think would be good predicates, if I need to share that with a colleague or my superior, or just prepare it for the clearance application, I can actually download this as a CSV, and that'll download the information you see here, but add a little bit more information also. So I'll just show you. It'll export, and you can open it in Excel, and it can look something like this. So you can see I have the K numbers here at the top, the brand names, the applicant or manufacturer, the decision date, and then I also brought in, when you download it, it'll bring in the device descriptions, the intended use, and the indications for use. And this can also be a good way to do a little comparison. So you can see all of those intended use indications for use together in one place and do a comparison between them, and also think about the device you're planning to bring to market. So it gives you a little
suggestion. Can you make a product code hyperlink to the FDA?
So, so when you're in, let me just go to a different, I'm going to go to this watch list, and I'm going to choose this product. So we do have some, so like if you hover over this, it'll give you the definition of that product code. And if I click on it, it will give you some information here about the product. You can see it's a dental. And we don't have those links here, but actually, I'm going to skip around a tiny bit. If you go to our product pages, you can go to product information and see the product classification, and this will have all of the information about the product code. So you can see here, product code LQZ, the description, what specialty and review panel belongs to, and here we do have the regulation number. Right now, this is not clickable, so you can't see additional information, but that's where we're thinking about bringing in that additional reference data. Does that help a little bit?
It does, but my printer's decided it's time to clean itself and not allow me to shut it off, so I'm on mute.
Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to go back. I wanted to show you something about the guidance documents here. So if I click on this 510K, which I can see has a guidance document, I can click on that guidance document tab, and this will list all of the guidance documents that apply to this 510K, and we're doing that through the product code. So we've actually downloaded and analyzed all these guidance documents, looked at the scope section, and assigned it to specific product codes and regulation numbers if they apply. That way, when you're looking at either predicates or just doing regulatory intelligence research, you can see if there's a guidance document that applies. These can be very important if you're doing a 510K application. They help inform testing that you might need to do or the way that they want to see the application, that type of information. And we do have that full text here. Just click on that number and you can scroll through that full text. Full text there. The other thing I wanted to show you was on this device.
Daryl wants to know, do you keep the guidance docs up to date as new ones are published?
Yes. Yes?
This is my follow-up question. Should we think of this as a live link to the FDA Cloud, and as things change over there, it automatically changes over here, or do you have to run a daily query?
So no, we are not direct querying the FDA databases. We download the data on a regular basis and keep it as up-to-date as possible. And then we run different algorithms on our side to make sure that the information gets processed. And we actually save all that in-house on our own servers.
It, of course, begs the question, how often is that?
Yeah, so some of the databases aren't only updated once a month or every week, so we can't update it any more often as they do. And it takes us a day or two to get the data from the FDA into our site. We run data quality checks and make sure that all that information is getting classified correctly and associated with or the products, whichever may be properly.
So two things. One is your colleague Angela sent me a private note, which I will not make private any longer. She said the data at FDA is very messy, so we have to do some cleanup to standardize it, which makes a lot of sense, I think, to anyone on the phone who has ever attempted to use FDA data, which is why we're here. Oh, I know that's loud. Hold on.
I also want to say that even if the data is messy, we don't try to necessarily fix any of the data. We keep it as close to the FDA data as possible. We just try to add classification data on top of it and associations between them, so it's more visible and you can get more insight. But we don't actually change any of the data. Even if we see something that we identify as a mistake, we don't change the. But since the data since we are saving data on our own servers, if there's a day when the FDA sites might be down, which I know has happened to me, you can still access all this data on our site.
Catherine wants to know if you can do a search for FDA Consensus Documents that were used for a device.
Not directly. If there is additional documentation that we find for a 510K besides just the summary, if there are decision statements or additional information available, those will be saved here under supporting documentation, but we don't have any direct search or something like that for those.
Please continue.
So I just wanted to show you on this one, we do have a successor available here. So we can see these are the two 510Ks that this clearance used as its predicates, but there's been a new clearance from a different company. So you can see ResMed is the applicant, and this company is Somnamed. So this ResMed product could potentially be a competitor, since ResMed is saying their device is substantially equivalent to this Somnamed product.
I have a 10X alumnus from that company, and CEO of ResMed spoke the year before last.
Great.
For what it's worth.
Yeah. So, yes, I think that's pretty much all I wanted to cover with the 510K sort of regulatory intelligence. So it can be a great tool for looking at predicates and also organizing your predicate research. You can see guidance documents that apply to particular 510Ks and have that information available to you right here. And also see any new successors, which can be great competitive intelligence and just regulatory intelligence in general. See what's going on with your competitors and other devices of a similar type. Are there more questions about that?
Just taking myself off mute and trying to figure out how to do this properly. You'll recall that we had a survey ahead of the webinar, and the results were that the question was, please rank your FDA database use from most to least often used. FDA 510K clearances was number 1, and adverse effects mod was number 2. Do you want to show us an example of mod?
Yes, so I just wanted to see if there were any questions about 510K first, but if there's nothing else right now, I will move on to the risk management and mod. So just as a reminder, this is the lovely mod database interface. I'll tell you that the thing that annoys me the most about it is that the default date range shown here is only the last month. So I very often forget to change that and then have to go back and edit the date range to get full details. I can do a search for, let's say, MIH, which is a product code that I'm familiar with, and that'll bring back results. In this case, it's a lot of results. If I click on any one of these, it's just going to bring up that single report. I can't go to the next report in the list, and there's no way to click from here to all of the reports for like this product, let's say. So those are some of the things that annoy me about it. I know that those are just a few. I'm sure there's other things that people find annoying. So to combat some of that, we've tried to design Navigator to be a little bit more user-friendly. So similar to the way that we have the 510K watch list, we also have the product watch list. And I've created this watch list. It has 5 different products, all with the MIH product code, and these are abdominal aortic aneurysm stent devices, which are implanted in the abdominal aorta, which is where there can be aneurysm, so a thinning of the blood vessel, and it starts to balloon out. This can be very dangerous, and it can rupture. And it's a very important blood vessel. It brings blood to your legs. So these are inherently a riskier device. They're a PMA device, but for that reason, they kind of make good demo devices. So the first thing I wanted to show you is that you can kind of do a quick comparison of these devices just here, looking at the number of adverse events and recalls. But to get a better idea of what types of issues these devices run into, I can do a product comparison. So I'm going to choose Compare at the top. And this will bring up a dashboard with lots of different information that I can look at. By default, the date range is going to be 1 year, but I can change that default date range for this dashboard is going to be 5 years, but you can change that here with the calendar tool if there's a different date range that would be better for your research. The first chart here is going to be about recall events. So I can see that 3 out of these 5 products have had a recall in the past 5 years. The placement of the bubble indicates the number of recall events, and the size of the bubble indicates the number of units that were recalled. So the larger the bubble, the more units recalled. To the left of that, I can see the different types of adverse events. So death, injury, and malfunction are the 3 basic adverse event types. If we get something that has some funky data in that field, it gets classified under other. Looking at this, I can see that the Endurant product has twice the percentage of adverse events with death than the other products that we're looking at. Scrolling down a little bit farther, I can see the top device problems and patient problems. And these device problems are really what's important for doing risk management. You want to look at the different types of failure modes that a device could have, but not only for your device, but also similar devices. That's emphasized a lot in ISO 14971 and other risk management standards. Under that standard, you also want to see how frequently these are likely to occur and also how severe they are when they do occur. So I'll be going through all 3 of those phases for you. So this is phase number 1, looking to see how these devices could fail. And this kind of gives you a good overview. We can see that there's a lot of similarities in the way that these devices fail. They share a lot of the same device problems. But looking at this AFX2 device, I can see that there are a few outliers. I can hover over and get more information. So material perforation at 22% for this product, and loss of or failure to bond at 38% for this product. And I can get even a better idea of how much of an outlier it is by hovering over the legend. So I can see how much wider that bar is for the AFX2 product than the other ones for material perforation, and also loss of or failure to bond. And
what are those on the bottom left there? 2 out of 5, 3 out of 5. What should I expect when we click on that?
It's just pages of the key, so it's a scrolling key, so it doesn't take up as much room since the descriptions of the device problems can be quite large.
Okay.
And then you can just hover over any of those items and it highlights it in the chart.
No, I like that. I don't imagine that FDA has pretty colors, so as a marketing guy, I appreciated that. Anyhow, Lauren asks, can you search a recall based on a criteria, such as recalls based on labeling?
You can't right now search directly for recalls. I can show you though that for a particular product, you can see what type of recall it was. If a particular device has had a lot of labeling recalls, we definitely call that out, and I can show you that. But if it's something that, similar to what we were saying about the CFRs, if searching directly for recalls for a particular issue is something that's useful for you, I'd definitely like to understand what the use case is for that, so what you're doing, and is that something that you do a lot? Because we definitely have that information and could build a search page for recalls if that's something that we deem important to enough of our prospects or customers.
So let's hear it, folks. This is your chance to influence product development. If that's something you'd really value, just leave a note there as she continues. I'm really enjoying this. I usually have to just sit back for 45 minutes. I don't get to say anything, so thanks for letting me play along.
Definitely. So like I said, this is the first step in risk management, looking to see what those failure modes are. We've identified a couple standouts here for the AFX2 product, but if I have a similar product to that AFX2, I want to make sure that my product's also not going to fail in that way. So to do that, I'm going to click out of the product comparison and go into the details for that product. So I can click on the name right here. That'll bring me to the detail page for this AFX2 product. It's going to show a product overview. So this dashboard is only the last year, but you can expand that once again. The last year kind of gives you a good overview, though, with what's been going on with this product. So you can see that they've had quite a few adverse events and also a recall event. But for risk management, I'm going to go to the trends and benchmarks for adverse events. I can see that they've had, an upward, increasing number of adverse events over the last couple of years, which is, interesting to note. But just the fact that I can see this, it's definitely valuable. Doing this sort of trending, only using MAUDE would, be very time-consuming. Clicking into all of those reports and finding out when the event date was and charting this could be very time-consuming.
Is that drop to zero real, or is that just we have no data for that field and that's the way it's going to look for every chart?
Yeah, so for a lot of charts, it will look like this. For adverse events especially, there can be a lag in reporting depending on how quickly the manufacturers respond. So it probably is just not reporting.
Okay,
We're
real.
charting here the event date, not the reported to FDA date. So
Rick just wants to say thank you because as a designer, he appreciates the graphic presentation and symbology. Double on the graphs.
Great, I'm so glad to hear that. So to dig a little bit more into the failure modes, I'm going to go to the failure mode and risk analysis, which we have a specific tab for that. This is going to show the top 10 device problems, patient problems, and manufacturer narratives. So here I can see the top 10 device problems for this product specifically, but we're doing a comparison to the industry here. So it's comparing these percentages to all other products with the same product code. So in this case, all of the other products with MIH as the product code. And we can see here for the top 5, they do have a blue bar that's longer than the green bar, so they're having a higher instance than the rest of the industry. And we can see material perforation at 22% of all of their adverse event reports have had that issue compared to only 2% for the rest of the industry.
Okay, I have a really long series of questions from Allison. She's very invested in MAUDE. Okay, she says, there's a recent trend in MAUDE for reporters to include long lists of potential adverse effects, which may or may not have occurred. Let's call this problem 1. Also true is a trend for reporters to upload an entire study or case series, resulting in a large group of subjects and adverse events all falling into one report. Let's call that problem 2. Both of these problems are significantly creating significantly increased workloads on MAUDE for reviews and adjudications. Close review of TPLCs, I don't know what that means, but you do, shows that, sorry?
Total Product Life Cycle. It's an FDA tool.
Close review of them shows that many of these keywords are being included in the accounting of failure modes, whether the event truly happened or not. Conversely, if a series of patients all have the problem but are mentioned in a single report, TPLC as a single event, which brings us to Allison's question. How does Navigator deal with problem 1 and problem 2? Is there a way Navigator can at least flag the problems So let me know if you need a refresher on what problems 1 and 2 are, and otherwise it's yours.
The first one I wasn't too aware of. I'll have to look at some examples of that, but it doesn't surprise me. Problem 2 with having bundled reporting is something that we are definitely aware of. We are exploring ways that we can deal with that because we don't want to either underreport or overreport if things are bundled together. Yeah, like you said, either trying to flag these reports as bundled or some way of trying to break them out so that we can count them properly. Because if there's manufacturers that are reporting them individually and other manufacturers that are reporting them together, it could mess with some of our averages. So it's something that we are aware of. We don't have a perfect solution for it yet. And for the first issue with the different types of failure modes, I definitely want to do some reading into that, because if it's a possible failure mode, or if the manufacturer has some reason to believe that that could be a failure mode for that device, I still think it would be okay to list it as a failure mode. But like I said, I would like to understand why those are being listed, if there's a rationale for them being a legitimate failure mode or not.
So John asks a point of clarification. He says, why are you calling these failure modes? Aren't they just adverse events? And is this report, and is reporting this data as a percentage problematic? For example, how do you know what the numerator and the denominator are?
Yes, so you're correct, failure modes and device problems are not necessarily equivalent. So not all device problems could be a failure mode and vice versa, but I maybe mistakenly use them a little bit interchangeably. We do have more than one device problem reported on a single adverse event a lot of times, though. So even though a single report is not going to be a single failure mode, a device can fail in multiple ways or be reported to have multiple failure modes in a single report.
So I think to follow up on what I'm interpreting as his written question, is the word failure mode shows up twice on this page. Is it properly labeled, or maybe it needs to be relabeled as adverse events?
No, a failure mode is different than an adverse event. So this is an analysis of the adverse events, looking specifically at failure modes, possible failure modes for this device. It is, what we decided to call this dashboard. If that is not a name that resonates with our customers, then we could look into changing that. But this is an analysis of the adverse events.
Thank you. Please continue.
And for the denominator question, there is not a good way that I know of, so if somebody else has a secret database that they would like to share with me, there's not a good way that I know of to get the total number of devices that are currently on the market or in use, like out there for use right now. So we do all of our reporting as percentages. So you'll see here, these are percentages, so 22% of the adverse events for this product. It's expected that all devices will fail at some point in some way. So that's the best that we can do right now, is to do percentages and do comparisons to other devices instead of comparisons to all the devices that were sold or all the devices that are in use, because that number is hard to determine.
Could you elaborate on that just a bit before we continue?
Which part?
Well, I'm not sure, because that was a question that came in, so somebody had better type quickly. Percentage of adverse events for this particular product. So
we know the total numbers that have been reported for this product. For this product, I think we can look at the record search. There's been almost 3,500 adverse event reports for this product. 22% of them we found to have a device problem of material perforation. So one great feature of Navigator is I can filter this list for a particular device problem. So if I want to do more research into this to assess the severity and frequency, I can type in perforation, apply that filter, and it'll bring back all of those reports so we can see.
Okay, John and I both think that's cool.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, so on this, when we compare it to the industry, we can kind of see how frequently that issue is occurring, and then here I can see that full list of reports with that issue, and then I can click on one of these to get the details. This is going to have much the same information you would see in the MOD database, but we've organized it in a way that we think makes a little bit more sense. Tried to group information together. All the fields will always be here. They'll always be in the same place, which is something that I've noticed on the MOD database. It's hard for me to find the same field on multiple reports sometimes. We've also put together a timeline so you can see when the adverse event first occurred all the way to the last time that it was updated in MOD. And then scrolling down a little bit further, you can see the actual event description. So here we can see that they had this device implanted and then had a follow-up scan that showed the appearance of a endoleak, which can be very dangerous. It means that there's still blood flowing into the aneurysm, and that aneurysm is still at risk for rupture. So they've actually reported here that the aneurysm seems to have grown. And they decided that this was so severe that they scheduled the patient to have a secondary procedure to realign the device. So in this case, this type of issue, if this type of issue occurs, it can be very severe, all the way to requiring additional intervention. So that's kind of how the risk management flow could go if you were using Navigator. The other great thing about the way we've organized it for Navigator, you can just hit the next button up here at the top and go to the next report in that filtered list. So this is going to be the next report with material perforation as one of the issues that we've identified, and kind of keep scrolling through until you've read enough reports that you kind of get the idea or answered your question or whatever.
Let me just remind our guests that because of the kind of interactive nature of this, you might be looking at the screen and wondering what happens if you click on that, or what happens if you click on this, or where would I go for that? Those are perfectly legitimate questions. They don't have to be super deep FDA questions. Just what does that button do is fair game. Please continue.
So that kind of covers what we have for adverse events, but since we're on the product page, I can also see additional information about recalls. So for instance, on the trends and benchmarks for recalls, I can see when the recall events occurred for this product. And then I can also see at the bottom of this dashboard the top recall reasons. So particularly for this device, they've had a big issue with device design. Half of their recalls have been due to device design. And this is the place where you would see a labeling issue, or the labeling ones are escaping my mind right now, but I know that there's about 5 or 6 different recall reasons that have to do with labeling, and you would be able to see them here. We don't have a way right now to search directly by recall reason, but we do have that field. And if you're on the record search for recall, you can filter here by label or device design. If a product has many recalls and you just wanted to see the ones that have to do with labeling, you can filter that here. And just like on the adverse event record search, I can click on any of these recall numbers and see the details, including an explanation from the manufacturer. And here, they had noticed an increase in those type 3 endoleaks and wanted to warn the public about it.
Chuck would like to know if you can filter by the reported by field.
For adverse events?
I think so.
So we do have, there's a couple different fields in the adverse events. We do have the report source, if that's what you're referring to. So if you wanted to see the ones that were voluntary, for instance, which are the ones that were reported directly to the FDA, either by a patient or a physician or any distributor, you can do that. So
is that what you're asking, Chuck? Are you satisfied? Awesome, thanks. Please continue.
I don't know if any of these were, but I think that's what the other, or user facility. I think user facility is one of them. So yeah, user facility, manufacturer, voluntary. You can filter that way.
Done. Okay.
We do have, since we have a few minutes and we've kind of been doing questions as we go, I'll just kind of show you a few other things.
Actually, let me do a little bit of housekeeping, because some people may have to stop at the top of the hour. Given the time, how many more avenues could you take me down? I'll remind you and the audience that I don't typically play in this space, so I'm enjoying our time together, but I'm not going to use this product myself. For folks who are on the line, I'd like to know, just in general, if you'd be willing to type in, how big a deal is this? How much time are you spending on FDA databases? Is it a big part of your job, a small part of your job? And I know if this were a real live demo and I were thinking of making a purchase, I'd be like, this is fantastic, but FDA data is free and this is not. So I'm going to need to make a trade-off here for money versus time. What can you tell us? I'm sure it depends if you this and that, but how would you answer that broadly?
That's to me, or that's to the audience?
No, that's to, well, it was to both. Anyone's welcome to type, but
yeah.
You in particular, I'm asking you about the money. The money, Rachel, the money.
So if you're asking about how it's priced, I mean, we do it a couple different ways. It's priced per user most of the time, and also by content set. So if you're only dealing with ortho products, you only need to buy the ortho set. If you're only dealing with gastroenterology products, you only need to buy the gastroenterology set, and that would give you access to all of the gastroenterology products in the database. So you only need to purchase that are really going to be valuable to you.
And should I think that endo costs as much as cardio?
So there are a couple premier level content sets, I might say, but so yeah, the content sets it's not necessarily a flat fee for each of them, but it's not that great of a difference between each of them.
So it's a function of how much data and how many users.
Yes.
Allison says that she spends a minimum of 60 hours per project filtering and adjudicating reports. So I'd be curious to know, Allison, based on what you've seen only and haven't had a chance to take it for a spin, how much time could this save you, and would it be worth it? She hasn't told us a price. I know that's something that we probably won't actually wrestle a number out of her. But I might push and say, if I'm a one-person shop, I'm a consultant. I take projects as they come. I do freelance. This looks great. It would make my life so much easier. How much is the least I can spend with you to have like the most basic one data set? I just do cardio, and that's all I do, and I just want to use it for me. Are we talking hundreds? Are we talking thousands? I have no idea.
We prefer to work with like individual companies and kind of understand how they're going to be using it, what the value is. And I mean, we'd be happy to meet with anybody and give them a price. It's not something that we really advertise.
Okay. I tried, guys. What do you want me to do? So I appreciate your gracious sidestepping.
So just quickly, I mean, we do have all the regulatory information for each product. So if there's approvals or clearances, and we've tried to build in the same kind of user-friendly aspect to displaying all of the fields and also being able to search the data. So in this instance, we do have all the supplements here that you can search. If you wanted to look at here, the labeling change supplements, you can do that there. Mm-hmm. And like we saw before, we do have product information. So those classifications are all the names that we've seen, and we have that information. I did have just a couple more slides I'd like to go back to. And then if there's anything else, we can come back to the application if somebody wants to see something. So
I do have a follow-up question on price.
Okay.
This one I think you can answer. Kira understands that the price per user, the price is per user and content, but is it a one-time fee? Is it yearly, monthly? Can you cancel? How does it work?
So we generally do yearly subscriptions. That is generally how the pricing works.
And so you're in for a year, 6 months in, I don't need it anymore, you pay for the year, right?
Yep. I mean, okay. We're always interested to hear how people are interacting with this data, so we would, consider it, but that's our standard.
Okay. Allison adds that if you could flag the MAUD problems, problem 1 and 2, it would decrease her work by half.
So just those reports that have that issue?
The long list of potential AEs and all of them bundled into one, I think is the best summary I can give you.
So just being able to flag those reports, either saying this is a bundled report or this is a report that lists multiple failure modes, that would be helpful for her. Okay.
I think so. And I suspect your last slide will share your email address. I'm going to send out this deck and the recording to everyone. May I include your email address right there for people to reach you directly if they want to have a one-on-one? Because
yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Chuck wants to know: is it a single user? Is a seat a single user, as in one login under time, or would I and my admin both need a seat?
So we, our company likes to have strict security policies, so it is a individual account for that user with a username and password. So if you wanted 2 people at your company, you and your associate, to both have accounts and they both have access, they would both need an account.
Okay, thank you. How to become proactive instead of reactive?
Yes, I would like to highlight how we are trying to help everybody become proactive. So what we've done is actually incorporate a set of alerts. These are the first of possibly many alerts that you can turn on. So for any product that's in a watch list, you can turn on these three alerts. So a voluntary adverse event, which would be an adverse event submitted directly to the FDA, like we were looking at. This is very valuable because manufacturers are still required to respond to those, and you have to check the MAUDE database every day, every month, however often, to see if there's been any new ones for your product. Also device problems. So if there's a new instance of a device problem reported through an adverse event, we can let you know about that, which could be a new failure mode or hazard that they might want to consider for a risk management program. Also a recall event, which is great for competitive intelligence. So if there's been a recall event for one of your competitors that you might not know about, that can be very valuable. Most times manufacturers already know about their own recalls, but not necessarily one for their competitor. We're also doing a set of alerts for 510Ks. So these product risk alerts are already live in our application. If you sign up tomorrow, you'll have access to these. We are currently working on the 510K alerts, but they should be live in the application before the end of the year. And those would be things like a similar 510K, which would be a new 510K with the same product code, a new successor. So if there's a new 510K that gets approved that lists a K as substantially equivalent as their predicate, you can get alerted to that, which is also a great competitive intelligence tool, and a new guidance document that applies. I also just wanted to highlight some of the many ways this data can be used. So we've looked at a few of these today, including regulatory intelligence and risk analysis or risk management, but this type of data can apply to a lot of other use cases, clinical evaluations, competitive intelligence, which we touched on a little bit, post-market surveillance, which can be similar to risk analysis or risk management, but slightly different. So I just wanted to highlight that. And then, as you stated, this is some of the contact information. You can go to readtech.com/navigator and see we have some short videos there, some more information about the product, and reach out to us there or through any of this contact information. But I mean, my email address isn't on there, but you can send it out, Joe, to everybody if they'd like to speak directly to myself.
So what I'll do is I'll send a note to the audience gathered. It's rbenway@readtech.com, right?
Yes.
So there's her email address, handy. A few more questions have rolled in while you were talking. Beth wants to know, don't you need to take sales volumes into account in order to make fair comparisons between products? And overall, how do you perform product standardization?
So we talked about this a little bit with the denominator question. It's kind of the same. So there's just not a good database that I know of out there that has sales volume. If one appears, we will definitely use that information. But right now, the best that we can do is just looking at a comparison of either that product to itself or that product to its competitors. And we do standardization in a couple different ways. We use the identifiers as much as possible. So the pre-market submission number is a great identifier that we can use across different sources, along with the UDIs. We're hoping UDIs will start showing up in more sources. And then the fallback ones are just by name matches, fuzzy matches, and the product codes.
Okay. Sherry is preparing for an EU MDR. She'll have to create a post-market surveillance strategy for products sold in Europe. Do you provide international data?
So right now, we just have data from the FDA. There are a few other countries that have some public sites, like Australia and Canada, and we are working on an agreement with them to start incorporating some of their data. We're hoping that with EU MDR, they'll decide to make their data public as well and accessible. So even though the FDA is not that easy to use, their data is quite accessible, and they don't have very many rules on how you use it. So we're hoping that the EU will follow that example and have the data that's pretty public, and then we will definitely incorporate that into Navigator as soon as we can.
Okay. Rick wants to say that he's currently helping a client build a DFMEA for their product. This is really good stuff. Your analysis is tighter and more defined than some of the in-house data with which I have been presented. So just a thank you from him. We are almost at the top of the hour. I recognize some people have to leave. If you have another question that you would have if this were a one-on-one, just you and Rachel, and you have a specific question Rachel, if you have an extra couple of minutes, we'll give people time to ask those. In the meanwhile, I'd like to ask the folks on the line, how did this hour go for you? It's the first time I've done a demo versus a webinar. Was this helpful? Did it take the place of a demo you might have done yourself? And does this lower a barrier at all? Was it somehow safer to have me do a demo so that, you know, maybe you had a fear of sales calls or something like that? If you did a one-on-one and it would be a real commitment and you just got to watch, look over my shoulder versus doing one on your own. I'd love to get any kind of feedback that you have either now or later about how this little experiment, went today. So I appreciate that. Any final thoughts from you, Rachel?
No, I mean, thank you for all the feedback that we've gotten already. I think it's great. We love to hear how people can use it and also how we can improve it. So it's a pretty small team here. If you say things to me and I hear it from a couple people and it seems valuable, I can get it into the application pretty quickly. We want to make sure that we're building something that's going to be useful to everybody. There's no point if nobody's really using it. So I'll say that. We're also, as you can see, we're not trying to replicate the FDA sites. We want to build something that's more intuitive than that, not just replicate the terrible process that you're doing now. So.
Okay. Well, I won't read them all specifically, but the answer to my question is so far a couple of comments that they thought this was a nice option relative to doing a one-on-one demo. It was nice to be kind of a fly on the wall, ask questions in this manner. Okay. Let me ask one more question of the group before you go. So there's a variable here. We don't know precisely how much it will cost. I'd love to get a sense, because I don't use it myself. I just have heard, oh my God, FDA database, nightmare. Oh, how nightmarish is it? How much better is this? Is this like, oh my God, thank God somebody's finally done this. Here's my checkbook. Or, well, let me see, I'm only doing it for 5 hours and I don't know if it's worth it. I'd love to get any kind of sense that you have. If you'd like me to just kind of know myself and not read it aloud, that's fine. But I'm acutely interested because this looks like it would be fantastic if, like I said, I needed to do this. I'm all about efficiency and the time that I could save on this. And it seems as though the data would be more comprehensive because you're interpreting some of it for me. You might show trends that I wouldn't see if I had to do it the long way. How much, how incremental is that? I guess it'd come down to the price a little bit. So nothing specific on that, just another comment or two about appreciating our time and this kind of demo format. So Rachel and Retech, I thank you for going on this little experimental journey with me. I had fun. And as I promised everyone, I will spool up a recording as soon as I can. I'll send it out to everyone so you can share it with your teams. And of course, those who are absent can check out all the resources. I have your slide deck as well. And Rachel, if there's anything else that you have, like other data about this, just let me know and I'll send it out to the folks. So on behalf of the Medical Devices Group, and my dog Elliot, and Rachel, I think, thank you everyone, and see you online.